Good. Welcome back to our deep dive into Sweden's preparedness brochure in case of crisis or war.
Yeah.
We uncovered a lot in part one,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so much more to unpack.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has really struck me is how specific this brochure gets.
Right.
It's not just about, having like a general idea of what to do. It's
Fine.
about actually like having a plan
Mhm.
down to the smallest detail.
It's almost like they've anticipated every question and concern
Right.
that someone might have.
Yeah.
Like, for example, what if the water supply gets disrupted?
Oh,
They acknowledge that municipalities will likely set up public water tanks,
okay.
but they still stress having a personal reserve at home,
Right.
just in case.
So it's all about layers of redundancy.
Exactly.
You've got the communal support system, but you're also empowered to kind of take care of yourself
Precisely.
to a certain extent.
And they even tackle the, shall we say, less glamorous aspects
Right.
of a crisis.
Okay.
They provide instructions on how to create a makeshift toilet
Oh, wow.
if sanitation systems go down.
Okay, that's definitely thinking ahead.
Well, I guess when you're talking about true preparedness, you can't shy away from those realities.
Yeah, absolutely.
They even go so far as to include instructions on how to stop severe bleeding, complete with diagrams.
So they're teaching people first aid.
They are.
In this brochure, that's pretty impressive.
It is. They emphasize knowing how to apply direct pressure to a wound,
Okay.
using a clean cloth or even a piece of clothing.
Right.
In a pinch, it really speaks to this idea of empowering individuals
Mm-hmm.
to be proactive,
Yeah.
to help themselves and others in a crisis.
It's like they're creating a nation of first responders.
It is.
Okay, let's revisit this concept of psychological defense,
Yeah.
which we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
It's such an intriguing aspect of preparedness.
It really is. And the brochure recognizes that in times of crisis,
Yeah.
information becomes a weapon.
Right.
Foreign powers might try to exploit the situation,
Right.
use disinformation and propaganda
Mm-hmm.
to create chaos and undermine trust.
So it's like a form of mental judo.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Being prepared to deflect those attempts to manipulate your thinking.
Exactly.
What's the advice there?
Well, they emphasize the importance of verifying information from multiple sources,
Okay.
especially official government channels,
Right.
and they encourage critical thinking,
Mhm.
urging people to be wary of information that's emotionally charged or designed to provoke outrage.
So stay level-headed.
Yeah,
When everything around you might be urging you to panic.
absolutely. And in today's digital world, that's more important than ever.
Right, and right alongside that is the need for digital security,
Of course.
which they also address.
Yeah, they warn about cyber attacks targeting critical infrastructure during crises.
Okay, so it's not just about, foreign governments spreading misinformation.
No.
It's also about protecting yourself from cyber criminals who might exploit a crisis situation.
Precisely. It's a multi-layered challenge.
Yeah.
Strong passwords, being cautious about links and attachments,
Mhm.
keeping your software updated, backing up your data.
Right.
These are all crucial steps. It's about minimizing your vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
no matter where the threat originates.
So don't just prepare your physical space.
Right.
Prepare your digital space, too.
Exactly.
It's fascinating how this brochure kind of connects all these different
It is.
aspects of preparedness.
It paints a picture of preparedness as this holistic concept
Mhm.
encompassing the physical, the mental, and the digital. It's not just about surviving a single event. It's about building resilience as a society,
Right.
having the tools and the mindset
Yeah.
to face whatever challenges come your way.
That's such a powerful concept.
It is.
Speaking of challenges, we haven't really delved into the practicalities of seeking shelter
Sure.
during an air raid or other emergency.
Right.
What kind of guidance does the brochure offer on that?
Well, they get very specific. They outline different types of shelters,
Okay.
from designated civil defense shelters to more improvised options,
Okay.
like basements, underground parking garages, or even interior rooms
Okay.
in sturdy buildings.
So there's a spectrum of protection,
Exactly.
with purpose-built shelters being the ideal.
Right.
But acknowledging that you might have to adapt
Hmm.
depending on your circumstances.
Exactly. They even provide guidance on assessing the relative safety
Okay.
of different locations.
So, how do you know if one place is better than another?
Right. Being inside a building is generally safer than being outside.
Yep.
And rooms without windows offer more protection than those with windows.
Right. So minimize your exposure to potential blasts or debris.
Exactly.
But what about those official civil defense shelters?
Sure.
How do you even find one?
Well, the brochure explains that shelters are clearly marked with a specific symbol,
Okay.
a blue triangle. inside an orange rectangle.
Okay.
And you can actually locate them on a map
Oh, wow.
on the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency's website.
So it's not just seek shelter, it's here's where you can actually find one.
Exactly. It's remarkably thorough,
It is.
and they emphasize that anyone has the right to access those shelters.
Really?
During a crisis, citizen, resident, visitor, it doesn't matter.
Wow.
Everyone is entitled to protection.
That's a powerful statement about their commitment
It is.
to collective safety.
Yeah.
But let's face it, the prospect of spending time in a shelter, even a well-equipped one,
Sure.
is probably not anyone's idea of a good time.
Right.
What kind of advice do they offer on coping?
Well, they encourage people to think about what they might need to bring
Okay.
to make their stay as comfortable as possible, given the circumstances.
It's like what?
You know, warm clothing, blankets, snacks, books, games, anything that might help pass the time
Right.
and reduce stress.
So it's about that mental and emotional well-being again.
Absolutely. They acknowledge that being in a confined space,
Yeah.
potentially with strangers for an unknown period of time,
Right.
can be challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
They encourage people to be patient,
Mm-hmm.
supportive of each other, and to maintain a sense of community.
It's that human element, isn't it?
It is.
It's not just about surviving the physical threat.
Yeah.
It's about navigating the psychological and social challenges that come with it.
Precisely. And this brochure, as we've seen,
Mm-hmm.
is really attuned to those complexities.
Yeah.
It's about so much more than just stockpiling supplies.
Right.
It's about fostering a culture of resilience, equipping people with the knowledge, the skills, and the mindset to face whatever comes their way.
We've explored a lot of different facets of this Swedish preparedness guide, from practical to the psychological. But there are still some big questions to ponder.
There are.
And in the final part of our deep dive,
Right.
we'll tackle some of the more sensitive and thought-provoking aspect of this document.
Right.
We'll look at how they address the potential for nuclear threats,
Right.
coping with the aftermath of an attack,
Right.
and even talking to children about war.
Heavy stuff.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Sweden's In Case of Crisis or War. We've covered a lot of ground so far, but now we're moving into some really heavy territory.
Yeah, no doubt.
We're going to talk about nuclear threats.
It's a tough subject,
It is.
but, this brochure doesn't shy away from it.
No, they don't. So how do they approach it?
Well, they start by acknowledging the reality that the risk of a nuclear attack
Right.
has unfortunately increased, but they also provide clear guidance on what to do.
Okay, so they're not just scaring people.
No, not at all. They emphasize
Yeah.
that seeking shelter immediately is crucial.
Okay. Preferably in a designated civil defense shelter.
Right.
But what about the aftermath?
It's a huge concern, obviously.
The brochure mentions radiation levels decreasing within days, but those initial days must be terrifying.
Absolutely. And they acknowledge the potential for long-term consequence.
Yeah. Do they offer any advice on how to cope?
They stress the importance of following instructions from authorities
Right.
regarding things like decontamination and potential evacuation orders.
Right.
And they also recognize the psychological impact of such an event.
So it's not just about the physical danger.
No, it's
Yeah.
the mental and emotional toll as well.
Right. And they also talk about coping with the aftermath.
Yes. Of any kind of attack, really.
Okay. Conventional, terrorist, cyber.
Exactly. They emphasize community support, helping one another, and relying on official information sources.
To avoid misinformation.
Exactly. It's about coming together
Yeah.
as a society.
To rebuild.
Exactly.
Okay, now, let's talk about kids.
Yeah.
How do you explain any of this to a child?
Well, the brochure has some advice on that.
Okay, good.
They encourage parents and caregivers to be open and honest, but to use age-appropriate language.
Okay, so not too much detail.
Right. And to listen to children's concerns.
And to reassure them.
Of course. To provide a sense of safety.
Yeah, that's so important.
They also suggest planning fun activities
Oh, okay.
to help kids cope with stress.
And to maintain normal routines as much as possible.
Absolutely. To create a sense of stability.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I think we've really gone deep on this.
We have. It's a fascinating document.
It is. It's pre-comprehensive.
Very thorough.
And while we hope we never have to face any of these scenarios,
Of course.
it's a good reminder that preparedness is important.
Absolutely. It's not about living in fear.
Right.
It's about taking responsibility
for your own well-being.
And for your community.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive
My pleasure.
into Sweden's approach to preparedness.
It's a model worth considering.
It is.
It's about resilience.
Yeah, and about facing challenges.
Together.
Until next time, stay safe.